I mean, it's the end of an era, guys. It's the finale to this trilogy of sorts, and this is it, right? Just kidding, because today they announced that we are getting a follow-up movie coming to Netflix next year to wrap this entire saga up, and I'm shaking. That news gets me so excited. What is up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking Wizards. The Tales of Arcadia series has been going on for years now. We have waited. We finally got what we thought was the final piece of this saga. I am so excited to talk about this. Did it live up to the hype? Does it surpass something like Trollhunters? Let's talk about it. Non-spoiler, of course. So, following Trollhunters and Three Below, Wizards marks the final chapter in the trilogy that brings together these three incredible worlds of trolls, aliens, and wizards. In the newest installment, a wizard in training and the heroes of Arcadia embark on a time-bending adventure to medieval Camelot that leads to an apocalyptic battle for the control of magic that will determine the fate of these supernatural worlds that have now converged. So, as you just heard, we're following up with a lot of characters that we knew from some of the other series, and we're not even being introduced to, but kind of making some of these other characters, putting them at the forefront and following along on this adventure. And look at that! We're going back to Arthurian times, something that we've done, I feel, multiple times this year alone, but something that we've done a lot in general. We just talked about Cursed on this channel, and that show didn't quite live up to expectations for me. A few too many twists in there and some elements that just didn't feel, and I say there were twists, but they didn't work all that well. It didn't feel fresh enough for me. It wasn't as interesting as I wanted it to be with something like this. And I know you can look at this and say, wow, it's animated, Austin. What is this going to bring to the table that we've never seen before? Well, how about essentially two shows leading into this show, so you've had all of this build-up, all of this time to soak in with these characters, and this, what we thought was the finale, it's still an epic payoff, and I'm so happy to report that I liked Wizards maybe even more than I expected to. I would say right now Three Below is my least favorite part of this entire series, not that I didn't like it, and just so you guys know, this is actually my first review in general from Tales of Arcadia. I spent the last couple of months slowly catching up and just having the best of times. But this picks up right after with some new characters, with our characters that we know from Trollhunters. You have Jim, you have Claire, Toby, Steve. You have the trolls Blinky, played by Kelsey Grammer, who is great. You have Mark Hamill and Clancy Brown's voice in there. Diego Luna's voice. I mean, the cast in general is part of the reason why this has always worked, but it really comes down to, does this adventure work this time around? And it was interesting seeing some different, some twists on some characters. Lena Headey, who I think is just an extremely talented actress, lends her voice to the character known as Morgana. And I will say this without spoiling anything. We know her character to be one thing. It was interesting seeing a different side of Morgana in this season, and interesting seeing a different side to a character like Merlin, and of course Arthur, and dealing with that fallout between the siblings, it's essentially a war between all of these different facets, and episode 3 for me is really when this season started to pick up. Not that it wasn't exciting up until then, and you get all of those incredible creature designs, and I think having Guillermo del Toro at the forefront of this series is the best possible blessing this Dreamworks show could have gotten. That is what makes this show work so well. He brings his style, he brings his flair from the storytelling that essentially it only improves in this season. It's not like it declines or stays flat. It improves this season because I think there are more elements this time around than maybe we've seen before, and that's something that could have easily made Wizards a flat piece of the ultimate puzzle, which had to come together. All three of these parts had to work in some way, and thankfully the story works, the characters come together, and like I said, Del Toro's style and his creature design, his character design. Obviously, we've seen before the trolls and the different magical creatures, and down to certain rock characters in this season, which I thought were hilarious, and just all of these different moments with these characters. Our main character being the apprentice of Merlin, I mean, there's a lot to live up to from that standpoint. standpoint, but we're also running into these previous versions of ourself at the beginning. I just talked about American Pickle on this channel, and it's the man out of time type of humor. We see it in movies like Wonder Woman and Thor. Well, it's another show that is playing upon that, as well as the Arthurian lore, which we've already seen before this year. So a lot of elements you could look at and say, well, it seems to be a bit too repetitive, but I don't think it is. I think it's fresh. I think it's new. I think it's utilizing animation, which is important here. I think this is some of the best work we've ever seen from Dreamworks. I mean, obviously, it shouldn't be the hardest thing in the world. You have all of these characters to pull from and work with. You have aliens, you have trolls, you have wizards this time around. A lot of beautiful magic being utilized, a lot of great character moments figuring themselves out and getting through this war of sorts, which is really cool and escalates in, I'd say, episodes 4 and 5 is when it really starts getting going. And the fact that the season, no spoilers again, leaves off on a cliffhanger. And when I saw that earlier today, I'm like, okay, I thought this was supposed to be the last thing. There has to be something else. And fortunately, we know now that there is going to be more, which isn't a spoiler for this season. But I encourage you all, if you're a fan of animation and you haven't, if you're a fan of Dreamworks and you haven't seen this show, start at the beginning with Trollhunters, get through all of these different legends in a sense, make your way to Wizards, and you are in store for yet another great, beautifully animated season. And I will say, few too many jokes for kids. This season in particular didn't quite reach the heights of something like Trollhunters. It didn't quite have the diversity that maybe something like Three Below had. And again, it is a familiar concept. I said to myself, no, we're doing this again because I feel like we've done it so many times, but we have these characters that we have had so much time to grow with and build up to, and different sides of these characters this season. You see characters that we've grown to know as something specifically, and then they progress into something completely brand new, and you're like, oh my goodness. It almost feels like it's too late at this point to do something like that, but they do it nonetheless. Guys, I really enjoyed Wizards. I thought it was great. I need your comments down below. How did you feel about this entry into this Dreamworks universe? Are you enjoying Guillermo del Toro's style? And are you excited for the movie next year? In terms of my score, I'm going a solid 8 out of 10 and 80%. Really good season of television. As a whole, this series has been great. I cannot wait to see what happens next. You guys are the best. Truly appreciate it. Let me know if you like this new camera style, camera angle, all of these new changes we're implementing into the channel. And if you enjoyed this video, like I always say, hit that thumbs up button. Stay tuned. More videos tomorrow. I'll see you later.